It's like, well, you're never going to be happy because he's shooting for something. He's shooting for the moon, and you're after something more realistic. Mm-hmm. You've never agreed on it. You've already got to this moment. Yeah, it's sort of too late. So we had that agreement. We hit the trigger, and it was just no consideration. It was like, we're ready. Let's do it. He was actually in Australia at the time, running our Australia business, and he moved back to get the deal done. Yeah, and that's what we did.
And then you guys, can you share what the sale was or what?
Yeah, we sold to a public listed company, so all the numbers are out there. Okay. Enterprise value was 18 million UK, which when you look back, I thought this question might come up. So I did a little look at in 2014, what that would have been in dollars, which was about 28 million.
Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is Robin Skidmore, the CEO and founder of Journey Further. Robin has a pretty wild story, grew up, very poor, very low means, and has been able to be really a very self-made, successful person, has sold a business for an amount of money that most of us can only dream of. Robin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, tell me about the childhood. What happened in your childhood do you think that really shaped who you are today?
Yeah, and I think as I get older, I realise and I've got kids as well, so how much those early experiences really do shape.
You don't notice it because you're a kid. It's normal to you.
No, and look, I went through some pretty tough times, and I sometimes think, would I have wanted it any different? Yeah. At the time, 100%. Uh-huh. When you're growing up and you know that those experiences shaped who you are, and that person that you've become is that super motivated, ambitious person, then it was probably an experience that I shouldn't change. So, I wouldn't say it was complete destitute. Right. I had a pretty nice upbringing until the age of about 8. My mum and dad split up. I was the youngest child of 4, 3 sisters, used to look after me, did a lot of dancing when I was younger because my sisters did dancing. So had this sort of lovely nurturing life. Then mum and dad split up. Dad lost his job. He used to work for a big UK newspaper. There was a huge scandal about the guy, Rupert Murdoch, that stole the pension fund. My dad was really impacted by that. So we moved from this lovely big house in the nice part of town to government funded house in the wrong side of the tracks. And life changed pretty quick.
And now all 4 kids are living with just dad.
Yeah, oldest had moved out because it was quite a big divide. Dad's got to go and work 3 jobs. I was looking after myself in a capacity that not many kids at that age really do. And I started to grow up quite quickly, had to get jobs from an early age. I went to university, luckily, but I had to fund the whole thing myself. Mm-hmm. Usually in the UK, it's your parents that are funding that. So I think for as bad as some of those experiences were, ultimately it shaped a more suitable character for the life that I'm living now. And I just remember from a very early age thinking, this is shit. And I am not letting this happen to me as I grow up, and I have more control over it. And it's not going to be something that I'm going to let happen to the family that I want to bring into the world.
Hey, y'all, quick break to talk about the most important part of your business, which is hiring. I've hired a lot of team members from the Philippines. They're super hard workers. The problem is I have to come up with an exact checklist for them to follow, and I am not good at that. So they end up being held back by me. This is why I love working with More Staffing. More Staffing specializes in finding talent from the Philippines that is high level. So you can just hand them your goals and they'll use their skills to get you there. I've actually done some hiring through More Staffing, and they were able to find me seriously great marketers for around 1/3 of the price that I would pay a US employee. So if that sounds like it could help you, go to morenow.com/MC so that they know that you came from the podcast. That helps support the podcast, and it helps improve your business because you get great talent for 1/3 of the price. So that's morenow.com/MC. Okay, back to the show. So you got some level of stability, at least enough to get through, what do you guys call it, primary school, what we would call high school?
Primary into high school. I always did enough to get by. My school report was Robin could apply himself more. But
I feel like I'm talking to myself right now, British version of myself. That was the same thing I would get. Like, if he would try.
But I knew what the levels of what you needed to do to get through to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember going to university, we work in a point system. I needed to get 12 points. I'm going to get 12 points. Yeah. And I got 12 points.
Right.
It was like, I never really pushed myself.
I'm not trying to get 15.
No, I mean, why would you do that?
So gonna help.
So, yeah, exactly. So getting to university was absolutely the turning point. And I nearly didn't go. Mm-hmm. I said to my dad, look, because the two buddies of mine had to reset the year at uni because they messed their A-levels up. And I didn't want to leave them. So I was like, I'm going to wait. I've got my points. I'm in, but I'm going to wait for them. So I'm going to work in the local pub for 12 months, make some money. So when I do go, I've got some cash. And my dad just went, absolutely no way. If you get in that system, you'll never leave this place. And I go back home and I see a lot of the same faces.
At the local pub.
They've never left. It's the same pub. It might be a slightly different name, but
it's like a small town. I grew up
really
in a
small town. Yeah, a little small town.
That is a common small town thing. Same people married a local girl, have kids.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I envy people who can be happy.
No, and that's nothing. Yeah, exactly. Like, I've got nothing against that. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And my dad, who's obviously wiser than me, of age, just could see that pattern and just knew that he knew what I wanted as well. And I think he just thought, if you don't make this move, you're probably not going to achieve what I know you can and want to achieve.
Yeah.
Because repetition and habit comes into it. And those things can start to be, they're quite strong forces, right?
The environments you put yourself in really matter, don't they?
Yeah.
You don't know it at the time.
Yeah, and I didn't know. So getting out to the big city, which is Leeds, which isn't a big city in comparison to New York, where we're sitting right now. It was a big city to me compared to where I was brought up. Was amazing. No, I'd never been to a nightclub before. I got heavily into house music actually from an early age, going to the sort of rave scene in Leeds, which was absolutely incredible at the time. So getting there, getting some even more control over my life because you're sort of living on your own, meeting interesting people.
How are you getting through it though? Like, how are you paying for it?
So you could apply for what are called hardship grants.
Okay.
So there was money available for people that had come from sort of council housing, and I worked. It's as simple as that. Well, my dad didn't have any money to put into it. The cost of university back then is not what it is now. Certainly not what it is in the US.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go, there were still avenues, but you had to put the work in. Ultimately, you weren't going to go there.
What kind of stuff did you do for work?
A lot, mainly sales, and that's part of the story. So I'd done some sales style jobs before I went to uni in the summers and stuff between school years. And then when I went there's a lot of call centers, banks, big financial city. So I worked in a lot of call centers and I was quite good at it. Yeah. And that's where I sort of developed the ability to communicate, to influence, to negotiate. And I've said this before, and I've written it down on some LinkedIn stuff. Those experiences, and there were some pretty shit jobs, right? Some bad organizations, some good, some bad managers, some good. But that whole experience of working in all those places at that early age really helped me become a business leader and understand what good is and what bad is, and what levels you should start to shoot for. And I think other people that have done that had a similar journey have said the same thing as well. I feel quite fortunate that I had those experiences, as hard as they were, or as shit as they were at the time. I think the generations now that are coming through straight into businesses like mine, they've missed that, and the expectation is very different to what my expectations were.
You get through doing that. I mean, do you go straight into entrepreneurship from there?
I did. I came out knowing that I wanted to run a business.
What did you learn in university?
Business.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was as generic as that.
Right.
When I was choosing the courses and knowing very little about how higher education works, I just knew the business was the business area was the area that I wanted to focus on. Yeah. And so there was a course in the city that I wanted to go to called business studies. And I was just like, that was about as logical as it got. Want to do business? This is business. Let's go and do it.
Yeah.
But within that, I did actually lean more into the marketing modules because you get to select what areas of business you want to focus on. So yeah, it was business with a marketing focus, and I've ended up running marketing agencies. So
yeah,
it's probably not a surprise.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you get out of university, you go direct into that. Like, at what point did you start your own thing?
So I did.
And why? And I guess why too, because at that point you're probably in a more comfortable, good job, right?
Yeah. But still not enabling me to scratch that itch that I've had from an early age. So I did a few bank jobs. So the companies that I was employed with part-time, I worked with full-time. Very quickly realized that big corporate world is not for me. I remember one day I was such a junior person within such a layered organization, big bank that most people in the UK would have heard of, working in the mortgage department. And I remember just constantly passing my opinion on how things can improve. Like, why is this like a manual process? We could digitize this stuff. Why are we doing this stuff this way and not that way? I reckon I can improve things. Just no one would listen to you. And for a personality like mine, it was just super, super frustrating.
Yeah.
And the turning point for me was I came in one day. I was clearly getting really frustrated already with the role, and probably to the point where I didn't realize. And I was talking to my boss, and I was passing some other comment, and I think she probably rolled her eyes or something. And I just remember I had this mortgage application, and I screwed it up into a ball, and I threw it in the bin, and I walked out. And I just thought, I've had enough. And I don't think it was because necessarily, it was because I wanted to be heard ultimately, and I wasn't getting listened to. But I think deep down I was like, you've gone to university, you want to start a business, you've ended up doing this job. What on earth are you doing? You've been here like a year now.
Well, and your core thing that you're seeking and insecurity that you feel is control, right?
Yeah. Well, there you go, right?
You're in this situation where you've done all the stuff that you're supposed to do to be able to have the money to have more control, and you go to work 8 hours a day and have no control.
Yeah. And I think that was the underlying subconscious feeling that I had that I wasn't aware of. And then I'm not proud of that moment. It wasn't great.
Right.
If you want to get sacked, screw up someone else's mortgage application, because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then I went to a sales recruitment company, and they've got probably not so interesting these days, but it was back then. The model was you'd go in for an assessment day. There'd be like 40 of you. It would be a whole day's assessment. There were brands there looking at certain people, getting involved in the actual activities that you were doing to try and work out who's got the right attributes for a sales role, who hasn't. At the end of it, it's a bit like sort of
it's like a training, like a tryout, like a training camp.
Yeah, and they go,
it's like
right.
NBA players have
it's like you're auditioning for a show. At the end, it's like number 1, 2, 3 goes to the left. Yeah. Number 5 person go over there, and I'm like, right.
They're like swiping on you guys.
And I'm like, I'm in a small group here, and I'm like, either we're terrible,
either we're really bad, or
we're out of the picture, or those 30 are amazing. Yeah. So I was in the 5 that got offers on the day.
Yeah,
which was great. And I started working for a web development company, but as their salesperson. And it was that gave me the idea for setting up the first agency. My job was pretty tough at the time. It was phoning up companies, trying to convince them to either build a website, because this was back in 2003, 2004, or that our business could make their current website better. And it's really tough conversation to have. It's like, where's the value add? What's the payback?
Why do I need a website?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is when Google was starting to develop properly. Right. And me and my boss at the time, who were having to go around visiting these brands, were like, it'll be a lot easier to talk to them and say, there's this thing called Google. There's currently 100,000 searches every month for what it is you do, either your services or your products. I've looked on the first page of Google and I can't find you anywhere. but I can find your competitors. Let me come and spend half an hour talking to you about the process called search engine optimization. And I'll give you examples of how we can use techniques that you've probably never heard of in order to move your position from X to Y. And when we do, we can pretty much guarantee that you're going to generate this many more leads, this much more revenue. And clearly that conversation as a salesperson is going to get more interest than phoning up and trying to sell tech for tech's sake. So that's what we did. Yeah. And it opened up some nice doors. We created more opportunities than ever before with bigger brands.
You guys broke off and did that, or are you still doing that within the
company? We're still doing that within the company. Okay. And then we sat down with the company and we're very much like, well, we think you should focus on this as opposed to, well, both really. Build the websites, drive the traffic to it, whereas they were purely on the dev side.
Websites, yeah.
But the people running that business were more in love with the technology, and that's what their passion was.
They're developers.
Yeah, and the CEO was of that way inclined. So with a leadership team, it was mainly a development business. And that was the epiphany moment. The name of my first agency was Epiphany. And I turned around to my then boss at the time and just said, I reckon we should just do this on our own.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
Yeah. No, I think this is what's interesting about that is like, that's offer crafting, right? Selling people the thing, they don't want the thing. They want whatever they get from the thing. All right. So selling someone a website, what do I get from the website? Well, you get the chance to get in front of people that are searching for your stuff, right? But you might not get in front of them because just having a website doesn't mean people will find it. Right. So if we really want to do a better job of someone who doesn't have a website right now, because they don't have a website by the early 2000s, right? Or 2002, 3, whatever. They're probably not super bought into the idea of a website, right? So if we want to sell them a website, we can't sell them a website. We have to just sell them more sales. Yeah. Right? You got to sell them the idea of like, well, you're going to put it up there and you're going to show up in all these searches and you're going to get more traffic, you're going to get more leads and more sales, right? That's what they really want.
Yeah. And the salesperson, that company that I mentioned that did that whole recruitment process, there was formal sales training that came with it once you'd selected the people that were going to work in your company. And you're trained, I already had a load of sales training. It's benefits, not features, right? And it was quite hard to sell that with a website. It's like, that's a feature, that's a feature, that's a feature. It's like, okay, I get it, it's going to do a load of stuff. Yeah. What's it going to yield for me? Yeah. Everything else was these things that we do, which I'm not going to bore you with, but there's stuff that we have to do to get SEO to work. It's going to yield this. Right. And that right now is an opportunity that you, A, at the time, didn't even know what SEO was. So they're like, didn't even know that existed. Yeah. And B, something that is going to heavily impact the performance of your business, but also allow you to diversify how you're growing your business at the moment. Because, there's still a lot of direct mail and X, Y, and Z that was happening at the time. Right. And this new channel that was completely untapped really could change businesses overnight if you got it to work, as you've seen in e-commerce now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So you guys break off.
We break off.
Doing this ourselves. How do you get your first few clients?
We had a list of the top 100 companies in Leeds and we picked the phone up.
Did you develop that list yourself? Did you bring it with you?
No, I mean, comment? No, you can get it online. Okay. It's just the top 100. It's readily available information.
Yeah. Okay.
And we were
picked the phone, called them.
Picked the phone. We were both very good salespeople. My business partner could do the actual optimization work as well.
So he had the skill set of doing.
He had taught himself.
The next thing I was going to ask you, because you're selling a service, you're selling when you're selling a service, you're selling somebody's time, skills, and experience. You guys had the sales capability, but he actually had the ability to fulfill.
Bit of a unicorn, really. Yeah. He had the ability. He really understood the technical landscape, taught himself how to do the skill, the technical skill, understood all the intricacies around link building, etc. So we knew that when we were having the conversation, if we were to win some work to a starting level, we could manage the work as well.
Right. So you're really just trying to prove out at this point, like, can we actually sell this? And if we can't sell it,
we'd sort of proved it at that agency.
I see. So
it was more, can we do it on our own?
Right.
And we managed to get a meeting. This is a bit of good fortune, which every successful business, I think, has a bit of.
Yeah. There's some kind of tailwind that carries you a little bit.
So I think it was the biggest or the second, I think it was the biggest company in Leeds, invited us in. And I remember sitting down in their fancy meeting room, and the guy said, "Epiphany, heard of you, heard really good things." And I'm like,
"What?
Really?" And I didn't know at the time, but there's a huge CRM company called Epiphany that he's clearly associated us with.
CRM is customer relationship. It's where you would keep all of your leads that you're trying to work.
So I just think he thought we were a division of that.
Yeah.
I didn't say otherwise. I'm just like, yeah, fine.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, they turn over, what was it? 5 billion globally. We turn over about £5 globally. And they gave,
yep, totally.
Yeah. It's all good. Epiphany. Yep. They awarded us a 3-month proof of concept. We got results. They gave us a long-term 12-month contract across multiple domains. And we went into profit after 3 months.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we never went out of profit for the next 10 years.
Did you, so on that one, you got that deal, you're just picking up phones, got into that meeting room, got that deal, and you guys were just fulfilling it yourselves. Your partner was just...
As soon as we got the long-term contract, we started to hire.
You hired some people to help you.
And it was all grads. It was all graduates, pretty much fresh out of university. We hired...
You're teaching them a new skill they've maybe even never heard of.
Exactly, but they'd come from either a development sort of engineering course or a data analytics and statistics course. We started to do a lot of paid media, and that's the sort of skill set. So you see, like, you understand the website environments, we need you for SEO.
Yeah.
You understand numbers, statistics.
Yeah.
We need people like that. And then we started to build more creativity into the business with content writers, designers, stuff like that. But it was all very much...
And what kind of companies were you working with? Like that first one, I don't know if you can say what it is, but...
Yeah. Premier Farnell is the name, PLC. I think they're either FTSE 250 or FTSE 100. They are, a mega business. That was a strike of luck, really.
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was more regional firms, property, real estate companies, student accommodation companies. I actually had a student accommodation business that I was running on the side when I was at university. Place to go and find student housing because I found it difficult to do it. So lesser known regional companies where it was less competitive to get results on Google. That was pretty short-lived though.
So that'd be something like, student housing in Leeds,
exactly,
UK or something like that. Right?
Exactly.
So what I would call here, if I were to make the example, it's like local businesses.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's how I got my start in SEO as well. Is look, if you're a dentist in Kansas City, Missouri, and you want to rank on Google for dentist in Kansas City, Missouri, that's what our company was doing.
It was a lot of that for probably the first 12 months, and then a smart move back then was to go. There's quite a lot of marketing agencies in Leeds, even though it's not a huge city in comparison to anything in the US, but it's relatively large in the UK. And we knew that they controlled the brands that we wanted to work with. And rather than trying to go direct to the brand, we went direct to the agency, knowing that they didn't have the skill set to deliver.
The agency currently was like a creative agency, or like what were they doing?
Yeah, they might be above the line advertising agency. They could be a creative agency. They could be a web development agency. We had relationships with probably 5 or 6 of the top agencies in Leeds,
and
they were working with.
Hey, do you want to sell them this service as well?
They had the demand already. They just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah,
because there wasn't that many agencies like ours at the time. So we would form partnerships. They would bring us into the wider conversation. I remember vividly going into my first meeting with a big agency and just thinking, wow, what is this? Because we thought we were like a consultancy. I was wearing a pinstripe suit and a big tie. That was not the world that we were entering into. It was all lovely offices, airy fairy, sort of nice food on the table during business meetings. I was a bit like, wow, what is this world?
Yeah.
And that really was the growth strategy for probably the next 2 to 3 years. We just sat as the platform that other agencies used when they needed to deliver search marketing.
Which is known as white label, right?
Yeah, but they weren't white labeling. It was all transparent.
Oh, they were. Yeah, so they were referred.
We would be brought in as part of an integrated conversation
so they would pitch a package and then you would be brought in.
Yeah, and sometimes we'd be in the pitch, sometimes we wouldn't. Mm-hmm. But it got us into brands that we would have really struggled to get to going direct. Yeah. And look, we still do that today, right? There's still relationships that we have with bigger players that want a good partner for performance marketing. And we probably could get the brands going direct, but if they're already having conversations, they need a good trusted pair of hands for that stuff. Yeah. It still works. It was just what happened was the agencies, as they were developing their strategies, were seeing a bigger check going out to us every month and thinking,
can we do this?
We should probably do this ourselves. Yeah. So a couple of them approached us to buy us, which if you think about my younger years, I was like, wow, we got something, because I never thought about where it was going.
Right.
I just wanted to make some money and run a business. So the fact that we had much bigger businesses that had an interest in acquiring us at such an early stage was massive for my ego. Really sort of showed me what running a business could mean. And we sort of explored a couple of options and decided not to do it, but learned a lot through that process. And then those companies either took some staff from us, set up their own divisions, or just hired in and built it themselves. So we had to start there, then building a sales team and going direct to brands.
Yeah. So, okay. So then you're going direct to brands. Plus you probably still have some agents.
Some of those, Like definitely you could sort of chart the.
I want to kind of, I want to kind of, shift to the next phase, but I think, before we leave that, like try to get into some of the specifics of how you built this thing. But like, if you're going to give people the DLDR, let's say I'm early on, I'm like, hey, I've got, a couple freelance clients, or I've got this skill set. So let's assume I have a skill set, or I'm with someone who has a skill set. If you don't have a skill set, then you can't have an agency. You need to build the skill set first. But let's say we have that. We can do creative or paid media or SEO or something like that.
Yeah.
Like what do we do? What's our first step, right? I've done it for this and this, but it's kind of these random projects. How do we actually build this into a business, a big business like what you did?
Yeah, I suppose I've done this twice now. And the second time around was different to the first time.
Yeah.
Because it depends how much resource you've got at your disposal to begin with.
Right.
Epiphany, we had £5,000.
Yeah.
So we had to work it all out ourselves. And we had to be the CEO, the salesperson, the client service person, the person that's ordering the office supplies. So it's about really at that point, it was how can you get some quick revenue through as early as possible to start building a team who could start to carry some of that responsibility across. And that really, it's just, I'm a salesperson. It's a numbers game.
Getting on the phone.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
If you're not meeting people and having conversations, you're not going to close work. Yeah. And that, whether you're doing whatever approach you're taking to drive leads, it's the same in any organization.
Yeah.
And when I look at our sales team and can see, maybe there's a quiet week in the diary, that's going to have a knock-on impact on future months.
Yeah.
You've got to fill that hopper up. So go to the networking events, get yourself out there.
Yeah.
I mean, LinkedIn right now is an absolute goldmine for this stuff. I mean, it's getting abused.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we've had some big success. Some of the biggest deals we've had have just been
LinkedIn
communications on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah. But don't underestimate face-to-face interactions, building those.
I think that's pretty big because I think it really, more than anything, it shows people that you're serious. Like, oh, you were willing to come here, like you were willing to get on the plane.
Well, you're looking at me in New York. Yeah. So I didn't have to live in New York to get the business off the ground. I'd already hired someone that was running the business out here.
Yeah.
Will it have a better chance of succeeding, or will it grow faster if I'm here? Well, I think I want to find out.
And there's no tangible reason why the answer is yes, but there's an intangible reason.
It also shows commitment to the clients. Right. It's like, how committed are you going to be to my business, which is, something every brand thinks about when they're hiring an agency. It's a good signal to show that the CEO's taking his whole family, which wasn't easy, by the way, with real visa complications, and made the move over to the metropolis that is New York from my little leafy life in Leeds.
Yeah.
I think we will take investment on at some point. It's a great signal to the investors how serious you are to grow in one of the biggest markets. And it's a really serious signal to the people that you want to bring on board to help you grow that business as well. So yeah, I think there's lots of advantages and reasons why that sort of in person, whether it be in a particular territory or actually in a room with people, sends the right message. But it's tough. It's because it takes time and energy.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys grew this up, built it up. At a certain point, you exit. So, I mean, take me from where you are now, where you had turned down some exits, to deciding you did want to sell this business.
Yeah, I think we turned them down partly because the offers were poor, and we just believed we just were low. Yeah, I mean, some were embarrassing.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, it's just money to me, and we should probably think about it.
Yeah.
And I remember a good friend of mine, who was also our accountant, just sort of saying to me, just snap out of it. Think about what you've built and how quickly you've done it.
Yeah.
And how much more you could get. Because I was really, I don't know. I lent into that because I could see a way to make a decent amount of money at an early age, which is all I've ever wanted. But having that third person, unbiased opinion very clearly took me away from that.
Yeah. I think you can map out what's going to be impactful too. You know what I mean? Like I have a small e-commerce brand right now. There's a number where we consider selling it for.
Right.
That is like, that would make a significant difference because it's a lifestyle brand and we take profit draws on it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that would be significantly accelerate. Like it would be a lot of profit draws before we got to that number, even after taxes and stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's a number that is probably the zone of where the most offers we would get are, where we'd just be like, is it really worth it? Like we're going to make that much over the next, and
that's the way you got
the next 8 quarters. Like, so I think you can really be practical about it when the offers are low, Well,
it made us have to focus.
Yeah.
And then subsequently from that point onwards, my business partner and I did our goal setting independent of each other every year. And we'd come together and we'd talk about what is it you want this year? What do I want this year? We'd link it back to the business, make sure that we're aligned, because if he wants something that's wild over here and I'm not aligned, then it's going to derail you.
Yeah.
But one of the key things that we decided on was that there was a EBITDA run rate. And once we had hit that run rate consecutively for 3 to 4 months, that showed us that it was sort of locked in for the long term, that would be the point where we go to market.
Yeah.
And we drew that growth chart out, sort of projected it forwards, and about 2 to 3 years before that point, we'd hired our corporate advisors. So we had the people working alongside us to get the business in shape, ready to do some sort of transaction.
Yeah.
But it meant that when we did hit that point, which we did, there was no conversation. It wasn't we go into market. It's like, we're agreed. And I've seen other businesses, similar size, get to that point, not have that agreement with their other shareholders, and it derails it.
And one guy says, what if we could keep going?
Well, because they've had advice saying, one of them's had advice, and it was actually from a large accounting firm saying, you should be shooting for this multiple. And the other one's going, I just don't think that's realistic.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're never going to be happy. Because he's shooting for something, he's shooting for the moon, and you're after something more realistic. You've never agreed on it. You've already got to this moment.
Yeah.
It's sort of too late. So we had that agreement, we hit the trigger, and it was just no consideration. It was like, we're ready, let's do it. He was actually in Australia at the time, running our Australia business, and he moved back to get the deal done.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
And then you guys, can you share what the sale was or what?
Yeah, we sold to a public listed company, so all the numbers are out there.
Okay.
Enterprise value was 18 million UK, which when you look back, I thought this question might come up. So I did a little look at in 2014 what that would have been in dollars, which was about 28 million.
Yeah.
And we had a 2-year earn out. I lasted a year of that 2 years. He lasted about 2 months.
So do you lose some of the
It's an interesting story. I don't know whether Shane will want me sharing this, but I will do. The way that MSA was drawn up. If you leave during that earn-out period as a bad leaver, which is basically you just leaving.
Yeah, and just, I mean, an earn-out is you have to stay on for 2 years to help us integrate the business.
Exactly.
So that you can leave. Like, you don't get to just leave because right now you're kind of integral to the operations.
And it is pretty commonplace in the marketing world. I think Martin Sorrell, WPP, sort of invented that whole model. And 2 years is quite short, actually.
Yeah.
4 years, certainly not unheard of, certainly back then anyway.
Yeah.
But if you were to leave during that period, you're basically saying goodbye to any future
and
cash that you're going to get.
A bad lever would be basically you quit.
You quit, or you got fired for whatever reason.
You got fired for cause.
Yeah, exactly. So Shane had some cash in his pocket. He's got a very active mind. He just wanted to go and do some other stuff. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize this at the time, but the way the agreement was drawn up, if he or if anyone leaves, the future payout, you've still got to hit your target, by the way, to get the payout.
Yeah.
Gets distributed pro rata to the shareholders.
Yeah.
So what he walked away from, the majority was going to come to me. Mm. So there was no way I was going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I basically got 2 years worth of value in year one. Mm-hmm. By that point, I had different motivations in my mind. The money side of it, because it wasn't all about the money, but that part of it was satisfied to the level that I thought I was going to get in 2 years in one. I just didn't feel like I needed to stick around. So I left, had a bit of time out. And left on good terms.
Okay. So took some time with the family. I mean, you're in your like 30s at this point, right?
34. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do then? Like, do you just, like bop around and
you don't have any email, which is the most liberating experience of all time. I remember
I couldn't imagine waking up tomorrow and like not really having to do anything and like not really having to do anything for the foreseeable future if I didn't want to.
It was great, but I also had some stuff to keep me occupied. We traveled the world for 6 months. So all over North America, Australia, everything in between. With a young child. So like I was being a dad experiencing stuff that you don't get the opportunity to do that often, which was amazing. It really was. But there's got to be an end point to that, which came. And at that point, I felt a bit lost. I think I mentioned this to you before we started. Yeah. And I started meeting other founders who had done a similar thing. There's a real trend.
Common.
Yeah, really common. Yeah. And you're just so fixated on the transaction. That's all you're gunning for. And you don't spend anywhere near the amount of energy you should do thinking about what happens next.
Yeah.
And from 34 is not an old age.
Well, 34 is pretty young to not have anything to do for the rest of your life.
Felt a bit lost. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Thought I might be some sort of hotshot angel investor. So I did a fair amount of that. Invested in 4 or 5. Pretty high risk, very highly valued, overvalued startups, sat on the board of a few. Didn't really get me too excited. You own a small part of a business that you're not really in control of, again, another control thing. Did some property stuff, fucking hated that, lost a load of money, hate property.
That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take all the money, get into real estate and then be set.
Yeah. Didn't have a great time with that. And then I was like, right, this isn't really giving me... I bought a pub as well, actually. I'm quite into food and drink. So I bought a pub, renovated that, launched this amazing gastro pub. A friend of mine's like an amazing Michelin star trained chef. It's still there, actually. I did sell the majority stake. I've still got a little stake, but it's still there. But still, that wasn't giving me the full satisfaction. So it was inevitable I wanted to start what I would class as like a proper business. And try to start up.
The agency wasn't a proper business.
Well, no, it was, but no, in terms of like, I was, exactly.
You're dabbling in some stuff.
Yeah, basically. Exactly. And I tried to do a tech startup business. It was a great idea. I'm not built for that type of stuff. There was just too much on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that I sort of had this moment of realization where I'm motivated by growth. I love growing businesses, mine and other people's. I love working with people and helping them grow. That whole epiphany journey, hiring all those, the majority of what became the really senior, most accomplished people in that business, they were all graduates. And, we had a big part of changing their lives. Many had gone on to start their own businesses, lead huge teams at massive network agencies. That gave me a lot of pride looking back. So I checked a thing called a non-compete clause and realized that date was coming up pretty soon. And just thought, look, if that is the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning, and I felt like I was quite good at it, it was a logical step to go back into the agency space, take everything that I've learned over those 10 years of growing that business and try and do it bigger, better, faster. Part of what not wanting to do it was not wanting to be sort of pigeonholed as a one-trick pony. It's like you want, as an entrepreneur, you sort of want to be able to prove that you can do it in multiple industries, which I sort of have done in the hospitality industry. But there was a part of me that didn't want to necessarily go back into the agency world through ego. But I got over that.
Like there's some people who just are like, do I really want to just like speed run the same level over and over?
But it has been completely different second time around.
Well, marketing agencies are oftentimes built on a trend, right? What is the trending thing that really represents a lot of growth for their clients that we can sort of arbitrage the knowledge of, right? So we can get a lot of knowledge of how to do this thing now, and not a lot of people have it, and then we can sell that. Whereas like now, if you try to start an SEO agency, there's a ton of people out there that have a lot of it. And SEO knowledge.
I've launched, it's a performance agency, but we're really pushing an SEO agenda in the States because we've got some interesting technology. We've got an approach that's quite unique. Well, not so unique in the UK, but more so in the US. But you are pigeonholed amongst a myriad of other agencies that have been here.
That's the thing. Now everybody does know what SEO is, right?
Exactly.
So it's a different kind of challenge. And that's the other fear with starting an agency is like, was it just the time period? Like, what if I can't even do it again?
Yeah. And there was that.
And that was me. My same thing. We feel like our stories are like, you're like a UK, or I'm a US version of you. You're maybe a little older.
A lot older.
But yeah, I also sold an agency for way less money. And like haven't wanted to start an agency again. I don't think it's because I don't think I could do it. I think it's because I, don't think it's the right thing for me. But there is still that was it actually just a function of the timing? You're also worried.
It definitely was as well. Mm-hmm. Like that, I couldn't do the same business that the first business was because Journey Further is different.
Yeah.
Again, because the market is just different, it's more mature.
Yeah.
It's the same with Journey Further, really. There was still a lot of immaturity in certain channels that have really matured quick over the last 5-6 years that we've been, we're 7 years now, but it wasn't like that. Certainly like Facebook advertising. We were even talking about, should we do it or not?
Yeah.
Back then, it's like, well, we were like, I don't think it's going anywhere. So yeah, we
it's just those sidebar ads.
Yeah. So we had the opportunity to create what we wanted, but I linked it to demand. I've been talking to clients for the last 10 years, and over the last couple of years, there is a trend towards this stuff. Well, let's start an agency that does that stuff.
Yeah.
Because we know it's in demand. You've still got to cut through though. We are still going into a market where I think it's like 5,000 digital marketing agencies in the UK. Yep. God knows how many in the US.
Yeah.
So you've got to have some perspective, point of difference to stand out. And that's the challenge. You asked when we sat down, what are you working on? What's the challenge right now? It's standing out.
That's, maybe just with our last couple minutes here, like kind of explain Journey Further, what you offer as a service and what kind of clients that you work with. And then the challenge that I like to end with a little brainstorming session. It's how do we stand out here?
So Journey Further, performance marketing agency, fully integrated pretty much in terms of the digital channels in which we operate.
Make that statement dumber for me, fully integrated.
Earned media, owned media, and paid media.
Okay.
Ultimately, our job is to get brands to engage with their customers in whatever channel.
Yeah. Earned being like press, PR, things.
Exactly. That's a bit
email, SMS lists and things like that.
Yeah.
And paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Facebook ads, Google ads, that kind of thing.
And clients don't care.
All right.
They just want.
They don't care about the channels.
They want growth. They want profit. They want market share.
Yep.
They want efficiency. Our job is to create the strategy of how we're going to achieve whatever those goals are based on the data that's available to us, our knowledge, etc.
Yeah. What kind of clients are you typically working with?
So we're about 70% B2C, 30 B2B.
So like physical product brands, when you say B2C?
We do a lot within that world. I mean,
e-commerce.
We will work across, e-commerce. We have a lot of fashion apparel clients.
Okay.
We have a lot of travel clients, finance clients, obviously it's slightly different to e-commerce, it's lead generation, etc.
Right.
But ultimately, wherever there are large volumes of traffic online that a brand wants to tap into, our job is to tap into them and to bring them through that funnel to a conversion point. I think where we're slightly different to others in class is that we think as much about what happens after the click as we do about creating the click. So it's about how we get them into the brand's environment and keep them there, get the attention and keep that attention. So we've got a lot of creativity within our business. We've got a very big CRO and digital experience part of our business, which is all about driving, a greater customer journey to get more of that paid media money, converting at the right CPC, CPA.
Gotcha. So where you guys focus a little bit more than other digital agencies where they're just kind of running ads or doing SEO or whatever.
It's quite fragmented, certainly in the US. It's like you're a creative agency, you're the performance agency, you might be our customer experience agency.
In e-commerce, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are all of those things connected.
If you get into the world of doing Fortune 100s, then there are AORs, agency of records, that are sort of full coverage.
Yeah. And that is the world in which we operate in the UK.
Yeah.
And where we are beginning to operate in the US.
In the world of sort of like e-commerce, like digitally native brands. So ones that started selling online instead of selling in retail. It is pretty fragmented, right? Because for a long time, it was just like run ads on Facebook, get sales, do your email marketing.
And that was a big focus for us as we were growing up.
Yeah.
We were offering enterprise level marketing to an audience that were underserved by agencies like ours. Like we cut our teeth on a load of D2C brands.
Yeah.
They will be served by this sort of tier of agency that is really proficient on one or two things.
Yep.
Usually the social side of things.
Yep. Usually it's Facebook ads or Google
exactly.
ads or email.
But as soon as you want to diversify and de-risk that strategy, that agency can't support you.
Yeah.
So we saw an opportunity as we were growing up the food chain to work with the bigger brands that we aspire to work with and now we do work with. It was like, well, we can go and do better stuff for those brands because we can do the social, but we can also do 6 or 7 other things, connect it all together and optimize the whole. And that was a nice place to play until...
Now everybody's saying they do that.
Well, exactly. And this was like 5 years ago.
Yep.
And now the D2C brands, the smart ones, are moving into multi-channel. They want to go into retail.
And the agencies follow. Agencies now all said that they're doing that, or they're acquiring other agencies that do it. And
we're the same. So, but that D2C environment is so saturated and is so well served for now that we've sort of taken the focus a bit away from that and gone more for. There's a tier of brands that want to work with a network agency. Like the network agencies are the big holding groups. They've got
like the
bells and whistles.
The Ogilvies of the world. Yeah.
And everyone it's an ego thing, right? I want my partner to be that agency. They're amazing. They did that campaign. The reality of it is, unless you're like a super brand, you're probably they're going to take your money. They might not give you the level of service and results that you're expecting because you're a very small fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
And we call ourselves the champion of the underserved. It's like, you've done that, you've tried it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
We're built to service you at the levels that you wanted from there, but we don't quite have the global reach that they've got or the perception. So you may not choose us day one, but when you get a bit pissed off because you're not getting what you wanted, we're here to support.
Yeah.
So that sort of tier of legacy brand that need to digitally transform, need some real hand holding, maybe don't want to work with a huge agency, we're the right fit for you. If you've gone down that route and it hasn't worked out, we're the right fit for you?
Yeah, I think so you're finding the positioning and essentially maybe moving up market to more legacy e-commerce brands or legacy retail brands.
Just legacy brands in general, yeah.
That are older, right? They're not 5 years old or 7 years old.
No, they're 50 years old,
right?
And they're still spending millions on.
I think that's a great move if you can do it. I think most digitally native agencies, so agencies that grew up in the e-commerce era, the D2C era, with brands that grew up in that era as well. A lot of them want to make that move up market, and I've seen a whole bunch try and not be able to do it.
Right.
Because it's just a different world. Like,
yeah,
what events do they go to? Right. Like sometimes we're kind of starting to figure it out, or like, what's the title of the person I need to talk to at that company?
Yeah.
Because it's not the same titles we use in our current industry. Like even just stuff like that. And, the D2C industry is very entrepreneurial. That industry has a lot of people who are kind of punching a 9 to 5, right? It's just a different kind of culture.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of agencies not be able to make the move up market. If you can, I think it's good. And I think your positioning is solid.
A lot of it comes down to, you've got to have some scale for a start. Like we're nearly 200 people. Yeah. So you've got to be able to show that you're proficient in each of the key disciplines that these brands need. And you can't do that by saying, we've got 50 people that do social and we've got 2 people that do email. It's like, you're a social agency. But you've also got to have the right expertise in the business. And one of the things that we did very consciously at the beginning was we hired brand side. Yeah. We wanted people that worked at the types of brands that we're going to go and target. They've managed the multi-million, multi-channel campaigns. Yeah. So that when we turn up to talk to these brands, you've got an empathy that doesn't exist in a lot of agency brand relationships. It's like, we know your job's difficult. We know all the challenges you've got because this person did your job for 8 years. Yeah. So that person will be completely leading this with you. Yeah. With that empathetic relationship, knowing that we need to have these things backing up how we deliver for you, because without that, it's not going to work.
So it sounds like you guys have the positioning once you get in the room. Maybe
how'd you get in the room, right?
You're wondering about the public positioning, really.
Yeah, I mean, we've got that in the UK. We've been around for 7 years. We're relatively well known. We will be on the RFP list. Coming over to the US, where we're trying to replicate that. Mm-hmm. It's a noisy market. It's a much bigger market as well, and that comes with challenges. You can't just hop on a train to London and go to a networking event. Yeah. Similar here would be going over to LA, and it's a 5-hour flight with exactly. So being here and experiencing this firsthand has been really helpful for me. Otherwise I'd make assumptions about what it would be like. I was like, why is that not happening? Why am I not doing that? It's like, if you lived here, you'd understand it.
How many how many regional biz dev reps do you have?
In the US, 3.
Oh, you need more. Probably.
Well, I could, but I need to prove the model that we've got right now that actually it's going to work. I don't want to hire a load of people with a process.
Well, I guess how far into having regional ones are you?
Right now, very early. Like, we are East Coast focused. The plan is to move into the West Coast. Yeah. But once I've got the blueprint for what's worked, and we haven't completely cracked it right now. Yeah. Because it's taken a bit of time for us to really find our feet, work out the proposition.
How do you get into the room with brands like Ralph Lauren or something like that?
And we have done. And that is a brand that has come. We put our own events on. Ultimately, we did one last night. So we had 15. It was a great turnout, actually. We invited 16, 14 turned up, which I think is pretty good. We had a private dining room and a bar just around the corner from here, actually. Yeah. And sounds like I didn't go to it, but it sounds like it was a great event.
Who was the co-host?
We could
talk off camera about that.
Yeah, nice.
What you just described, I went to last night.
Oh, right. Was it an SEO thing?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, right. So this was an SEO focused event. Right. Brands you would have heard of. Yeah. It was run by our VP of growth, but with elements of our people from our organic team. Yeah. They got there at 6. They left at 10:30. The conversations were clearly flowing. So you've got to be able to.
It's a long sales cycle.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
You know this from being in the UK, but how do you position it publicly? I mean, if you think about it, who are the ones that are positioning publicly in that space? Like, basically, it's like Ogilvy, Vayner. It's legacy agencies, really.
Yeah, I mean, for us, looking at the market, the ones that would stand out would be a W Promote, a Tenuity.
They're not that well positioned publicly,
right?
they're just known within the industry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
like, I don't think you need to have the public.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's really educating the performance marketing world that we exist, and we should be a consideration for that. And that's and that for us right now.
I think that's just events and webinars, online education.
Yeah, which is what we're doing. Yep. You've got to crank it up. Yep. We've only been here just over 12 months. It takes a bit of time.
It's a bunch of middle funnel content creation.
Yeah,
that's W Promote, Tenuity. You know, it's they're not that big really, like in terms of people's general perception. It's just they're well known in the performance world, and it's a bunch of middle funnel content creation about performance marketing. Right.
I'll get back to my CMO and tell her.
Yeah. That's what I think anyway. I don't know.
I get it, man.
I'm not trying to. I like the brainstorming session, but I'm like, well, we're not going to solve your problem in 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like you've been thinking about this, but I think it's valuable to see how people.
And that's what we have been doing. It is webinars, it's events, it's third-party events, it's sponsorship. It just takes time.
You're on the path, and the hard part about it taking time is you're like, is it going to work? Are we doing the right stuff?
Yeah.
Do we just do more of it, or do we need to pivot it?
Yeah.
That's the tough thing, right?
It's delving into what's actually working.
Yeah. And I think you just got to set a future date of like, we're going to do this for this long. And this is how we're going to measure that. And like, at this day, if we're going to be able to say like whether it's kind of worked at least.
Well, we came over with a very UK centric mindset, which was foolish. And we wasted time, if I'm honest, for the first 6 months. I then hired seasoned marketer from one of the top performance agencies, same for a salesperson to come in. They actually worked together at a previous agency that's pretty well known in that space. And I just went, right, you know what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know the landscape. That is different to the UK for sure. Tell us what the strategy needs to look like. Yeah. And now it's actually starting developing that. And it is working. It is absolutely working. Like we've won more new business in the last probably 8 weeks than we have done in 8 months.
Yeah. No, it is interesting because I think it's when you go up market like that, you do have to be in the same locations as they are, right? So it's not,
and that's a bit of a learning as well.
It's not done remotely, which is different than the digitally native group. Robin, thanks so much for being on the show. Where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn mainly. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn or through the website.
There you go. Thanks.
Cheers, man.